The music stopped, not because the DJ hit the wrong button, but because every head in the room turned toward the door at the exact same time. The grand entrance of the Reed mansion, lined with crystal chandeliers, white roses, and cameras, had never seen a moment like this. There she stood, a tall black woman in a navy blue gown that shimmered like satin under the golden lights. Her short curls framed her face like a crown. Her lips were painted bold. Her earrings sparkled. Her walk, slow, strong, and steady, like she'd done it before. But she hadn't. This was Tiffany Moore, the cleaning lady, the woman everyone in that room had seen wiping windows, pushing a mop bucket, and riding the bus to work. The woman Jackson Reed, the Millionaire tech CEO, had invited to his exclusive party as a joke. Now nobody was laughing. Jackson, standing beside the champagne tower, felt his smile freeze. He hadn't actually expected her to come, and even if she did, he'd imagined old sneakers and maybe a t-shirt dress, something to make her look small. But Tiffany didn't look small. She looked like she belonged. "Who is that?" Brittany Chase, Jackson's friend, whispered loudly. Haley, Jackson's daughter, didn't say a word. Her eyes stayed on Tiffany, full of quiet awe. The guests parted as Tiffany walked past them like calm water through rocks. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look angry. She didn't even look surprised to be there. She just walked, slow, calm, shoulders back, toward the center of the room. And all anyone could do was watch. 10 minutes earlier. The valet outside had nearly dropped the keys in shock when Tiffany stepped out of the cab. "Ma'am, name?" he stammered. "Tiffany Moore," she said, with a calm smile. The guard checked the list, blinked, and nodded. Inside, Carlos, the longtime doorman, grinned from behind the curtains. He had seen the gold envelope days ago. He knew why it was sent, but he also knew Tiffany. He whispered to himself, "Lord have mercy, she came." 1 week earlier. It started with laughter. Jackson Reed and his friends had been sitting in his sunroom, planning the most exclusive party of the year. "We'll have a black and gold theme," Jackson said. "Only the top of the top, celebrities, influencers, real people." "Not your cleaning staff," Brittany joked, tossing her hair. That's when Jackson smirked and said, "Actually, let's invite Tiffany." Everyone stared. "You're not serious," someone giggled. "Oh, I'm dead serious," Jackson said. "Let's see if bleach water smells good in a ballroom." They howled with laughter. Carlos, who had just walked in with a tray, heard it all. His face stayed calm, but his heart sank. Tiffany opened the gold envelope slowly. She didn't know why it was there. It didn't feel real, but the name was hers, printed in shiny silver letters. "You are invited. Dress to impress." She stared at the words for a long time. Then she quietly folded the card and placed it in her bag. At home, her son Darius told her not to go. "They're messing with you, Ma. Don't let them." Tiffany just looked at her old closet. She opened the box with the dress she'd bought 2 decades ago, the one she'd never worn. "Sometimes the best way to shut a door," she said softly, "is to walk right through it." And now, back at the party. Tiffany stopped in the middle of the ballroom. The lights hit her just right. The silence was loud. Jackson cleared his throat. "Well, look who decided to join us," he said, trying to smile. Tiffany tilted her head. "I was invited," she said gently. Some guests chuckled nervously. A few whispered. Brittany sipped her drink a little too fast. But Haley Reed, Jackson's daughter, stood up and crossed the room. She reached Tiffany and said quietly, "You look beautiful." Tiffany smiled. "Thank you, sweetheart." And just like that, the air changed. Haley didn't go back to her seat. She stayed by Tiffany's side. "Would you like a drink?" Haley asked. "Only if you're having one too." They walked together toward the drink table, past the stunned guests, past Jackson, who now looked like he had swallowed a lemon. He didn't speak. He couldn't. The joke he thought he'd made, it was now standing tall in heels and dignity, and everyone could see who the real joke was. When Tiffany Moore walked into that party and every mouth fell open, nobody clapped. Not yet. They didn't know who she was. They saw a stunning woman in a navy blue gown, yes, but all they could remember was the mop bucket, the uniform, the silence. They didn't know that underneath that calm smile was years of quiet pain, strength, and choices. Choices that didn't always feel fair. But Tiffany had made them anyway, 15 years ago. Tiffany had dreams once, big ones. She wanted to be a teacher. She had started college in her 20s after raising her little brothers in Brooklyn. She worked late nights at a diner and studied during the day. Then, just 2 weeks before finals, her mother got sick, real sick. Tiffany dropped out without blinking. "I'll come back," she said. She never did. She took care of her mother until she passed. Then she got pregnant with Darius. By then, the world moved too fast. Rent had to be paid. Diapers weren't free. Dreams could wait, but food couldn't. So she worked, cleaning houses, folding laundry, scrubbing floors. No degrees, no speeches, just hard, honest work. Tiffany started cleaning at the Reed Mansion 5 years ago. The money was better than most places. She didn't complain. She didn't talk much. She showed up early, stayed late, and never asked for favors. But she watched. She watched Jackson Reed boast about his apps and money and dinner meetings with people who didn't even know her name. She watched Brittany Chase toss her coats at staff like they were hangers. She watched how people treated others depending on what they wore. And she made a promise to herself. If I ever get a moment where the world looks up instead of down, I'll walk proud. Back to the party. Haley Reed didn't care that people were staring. She was 17 and tired of fake smiles. She liked Tiffany. She'd seen her before, not just as the woman with the broom, but as someone kind. Once, Tiffany helped her fix her torn skirt before a school dance. Another time, she handed her tissues when she was crying in the hallway after her parents fought. So Haley didn't walk behind Tiffany at the party. She walked beside her. "What made you come?" she asked. Tiffany took a sip of her drink. "I think your father invited me." Haley made a face. "Yeah, but why'd you say yes?" Tiffany looked around at the glitter and gold. "Because sometimes, sweetheart," she said, "people invite you to laugh at you. And sometimes you show up to remind them you're not a joke." Meanwhile, across the room, Jackson Reed was sweating. He didn't expect this. He expected whispers and giggles. He expected her to look lost, but she didn't. And now his daughter, his only daughter, was glued to her. "What are you doing, Haley?" he asked, walking over with a forced grin. "Talking to Ms. Moore." "Why don't you come say hello to Mr. Langston? He just arrived.
In a minute.
Jackson looked at Tiffany, trying to stay polite. Well, Ms. Moore, he said, you certainly clean up well.
I've always been clean, Mr. Reed,
she replied, steady. He gave a nervous laugh. I was just being friendly, he said.
So was I.
The silence that followed was heavy. Brittany walked over, looking like she smelled something sour.
Wow,
she said with fake sweetness.
I didn't know the help was invited to mingle.
Haley turned.
Brittany, don't.
Tiffany smiled.
It's okay,
she said gently.
I'm not offended. I've met people like her before. Like who?
Brittany snapped.
People who think class comes from money instead of manners.
That line hit like thunder. Even the waiters paused. Someone snapped a photo, then another. By now, word had gotten out. The cleaning lady is at the party, and she looks amazing. A reporter in the room whispered, Who is she? Carlos, watching from the hallway, smiled to himself. She's the woman you never saw until now, he said under his breath. Later that night. As the party died down, people began coming up to Tiffany, quietly, respectfully.
Hi, I'm Alicia. That dress is gorgeous. You must be someone important. Mr. Reed looks like he's seen a ghost. Are you a guest speaker?
Tiffany answered each one kindly.
Nope, just a guest, like you.
By the time she was ready to leave, Haley walked her to the door.
Thank you for coming,
Haley said.
Thank you for seeing me. I always did.
Tiffany smiled. At home. Darius was waiting at the door when she walked in.
Mom. Yes?
You broke the internet. He showed her a picture. It had already been posted to 3 gossip blogs. It said, Mystery woman stuns at tech billionaire's party. Who is she? Tiffany laughed softly. Let them wonder, she said. She took off her earrings and sat on the couch. Tonight was for me.
The party was nearly over. People were leaving with glitter still on their shoes and champagne bubbles in their heads. But inside the Reed mansion, 2 people stayed behind, sitting on a velvet bench near the balcony. One was Haley Reed, the daughter of the richest man in the room. The other was Tiffany Moore, the woman nobody noticed until tonight. The stars above were quiet, the lights from the pool below flickered on the glass, and in that soft moment, Haley asked the question that had been sitting on her lips all night. That dress you wore, it was beautiful. Where did you get it? Tiffany smiled gently. I bought it 20 years ago. 20? Whoa, it still looks brand new. That's because I never wore it. Haley looked confused. Why not? Tiffany's eyes followed the moonlight. Because I bought it for a night that never happened. 20 years ago. Tiffany had just turned 28. She was in her 2nd year of college, studying early childhood education. She had big dreams back then. She was dating a young man named Victor, who promised her the world. He told her to pick a dress, any dress, and get ready for their engagement dinner. Tiffany searched for days. She skipped lunch to save. She borrowed money from a friend. And finally, she found it. A deep navy blue evening gown, soft and fitted, with just the right sparkle on the shoulders. She stood in the mirror that day, turning slowly. I've never felt this pretty, she whispered. But Victor never showed. He stopped answering her calls. 2 weeks later, she found out he had moved away with someone else. She cried all night. Then she put the dress back in its box, carefully folded, tag still on, and hid it in the back of her closet. It was supposed to be for a special night, she said softly, but the night never came. Back on the balcony, Haley's mouth dropped open. "That's horrible. What happened after that?" "Life," Tiffany said with a smile. "I raised my son, I worked, I kept going." "You never wore the dress all these years?" "No, until now." "Why now?" Tiffany looked at her. "Because sometimes, sweetheart, we wait for the world to give us permission to feel special. But tonight, I gave myself that permission." Haley sat with that. The wind blew softly. "My dad, he didn't invite you for a good reason, did he?" Tiffany was quiet. "No, he didn't." "And you knew?" "Yes." "Then why'd you come?" Tiffany leaned forward. "Because I wanted to teach people something. Not with anger, not with shouting, but just by being seen." Haley nodded slowly. "Well, I saw you, and I'll never forget it." Inside the house. Jackson Reed stood at the top of the stairs, watching them. He had heard part of the conversation. For the first time in a long while, he felt something he didn't quite recognize: shame. He walked back inside his office and closed the door behind him. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Carlos, the doorman, and Mrs. Ellis, the head cook, were still cleaning up the last trays of food. Carlos whispered, "Did you see how she walked in tonight?" Mrs. Ellis grinned. "She didn't just walk in. She walked through. That woman walked through every wall they tried to put around her." Carlos nodded. "That's the kind of story people should tell their kids." Back on the balcony, Haley leaned her head on Tiffany's shoulder. "You know, people think I'm lucky because I live in this mansion." "You are lucky," Tiffany said kindly, "but that doesn't mean your life is easy. I wish I had your kind of strength." "It's not something you're born with," Tiffany replied. "It's something you choose, one hard moment at a time." Haley smiled, then stood. "I'm going to bed, but can I give you a hug first?" Tiffany stood too. "You sure can." They hugged, quiet, warm, like family. Haley stepped back, eyes full of something new. "Good night, Ms. Moore." "Good night, Haley." As Haley walked inside, Tiffany stood for a moment longer. She looked down at the garden below, now empty. She looked at the dress she had waited 2 decades to wear, and she whispered, "Tonight was the night, after all." The music had stopped. The guests had gone home. The dishes were stacked in the sink, like a small mountain. But the story of the party, that was just beginning. Jackson Reed usually spent his Saturdays sleeping late, scrolling news articles about himself and calling his chef for blueberry pancakes. But not today, because when he reached for his phone that morning, he saw it. Everywhere. The mystery woman who stunned Beverly Hills. Who invited her? And why she may have just stolen the show. Power in a gown. The most talked-about guest wasn't a billionaire. His face tightened. The picture used on every blog was the same. Tiffany Moore, standing at the center of the Reed ballroom, glowing like she owned the world. Even Forbes Style reposted it with the caption, "Elegance, confidence, no apologies." Thousands of comments rolled in. I don't know who she is, but I love her energy. The dress, the posture. That's what real class looks like. Who's the guy looking shocked in the back? Is that the host? One comment, written in all caps, stood out. I want to be her when I grow up. At Tiffany's apartment, Tiffany wasn't scrolling. She was folding laundry, the same way she always did. Slow, steady, neat. Darius, her son, was the one who brought her the phone. Ma, you're trending. She blinked. I'm what? You're everywhere. Look. He showed her the screen. There she was, over and over, wearing the gown she thought would stay in a box forever. Tiffany stared for a while, then smiled softly. Let them talk. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Jackson was pacing his office. His assistant Jared stood nervously by the door. Sir, we're getting media requests, interviews, even The View wants a comment. About what? Jackson snapped. About her, Tiffany Moore, the guest who... The cleaning lady, Jackson said, teeth clenched. Yes, sir. Jackson sat down hard. This wasn't supposed to happen, he muttered. It was just a joke. Jared shifted on his feet. With all due respect, sir, the world doesn't think it's funny. In the city, kids on the subway were talking about the lady with the magic walk. Teenagers made short videos pretending to walk like Tiffany Moore. One girl posted a clip wearing a second-hand dress with the words, I don't need to be rich, I just need to remember I'm enough. It went viral. At Haley's school. Haley walked into homeroom with a different kind of energy. Students whispered, pointed. Is that her? One asked. Yeah, that's the girl who walked next to her. Haley didn't mind. At lunch, her friend Mia asked, Was it planned? Haley shook her head. No, it was never part of the plan. It was real. She's awesome, Mia said. Yeah, Haley replied. She is. Back at Tiffany's apartment, someone knocked. She opened the door to find Carlos, the doorman, holding a small gift bag. I hope you don't mind, he said, smiling. What's this? From me and Mrs. Ellis. Just something small. Inside the bag was a handwritten note. You carried more than a dress last night. You carried us all. Thank you. Tiffany blinked back tears. Carlos, she said, I didn't know people were watching. We've always been watching, Tiffany. You just gave us something to cheer for. That evening, Jackson sat alone at his desk. He looked tired. His fingers hovered over his phone. Then he finally dialed. It rang twice. Hello? Tiffany answered. Tiffany, it's Jackson Reed. I know. I just wanted to say, I didn't mean for any of this to get out of hand. You invited me to laugh at me, Jackson, Tiffany said calmly. But I walked in so you could see who I really am. Well, I see you now. Good. Then maybe next time, invite people for the right reasons. She didn't yell. She didn't curse. She didn't hang up angry. She just ended the conversation with peace. That night, Haley sat on her bed, scrolling through photos of the party. One picture, her favorite, showed Tiffany standing in the garden, the moon behind her, smiling softly. Haley added it to her screensaver. She looked up at her ceiling and whispered, I want to be like her. A week had passed since the night Tiffany Moore walked into that golden room and made the world look twice. But people were still talking. Not just online, not just in whispers. They were talking out loud, everywhere, at coffee shops, in school hallways, on local news stations. Even kids in Haley's class were repeating what Tiffany had said on the balcony. Sometimes we wait for the world to give us permission to feel special, but tonight I gave myself that permission. It was more than a story now. It was a movement. At Tiffany's apartment, Tiffany didn't want attention. She still walked to the store in her sneakers, still tied her scarf around her hair before bed, still wiped the windows in her hallway when no one else did. But something had changed. Letters were arriving, handwritten ones, from little girls and teenage boys and tired moms. You helped me see myself again. I didn't go to prom because I felt too poor, but now I want to try. Thank you for showing me what real power looks like. Tiffany read every single one and cried more than once. One afternoon she heard a knock. She opened the door and froze. It was Jackson Reed. Not in a fancy suit, not with sunglasses or a smirk. Just a quiet man in a hoodie and jeans, holding a small envelope. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked. She looked at him for a long second, then stepped aside. They sat at her small kitchen table. A teapot steamed between them. Tiffany waited. Jackson cleared his throat. "I came to say 2 things," he said. "First, I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry you say to look good. I mean the real kind, the one you feel in your chest." Tiffany didn't speak. She just listened. "And second," Jackson continued, placing the envelope on the table, "I want to offer you something." She raised an eyebrow. "It's not money," he added quickly. "It's an opportunity." Tiffany looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "Go on. I run a mentoring program for high school girls. It's been struggling. Not enough heart, not enough truth. We need someone to lead it, someone they'll actually respect." He paused. "I want that person to be you." Tiffany looked at him. "You want me to work for you again?" "No. I want you to work with me. You'd have full control, your voice, your way. And why me? Because you taught the entire country a lesson without ever raising your voice. I'd be a fool not to learn from you." She sipped her tea slowly. "I'll think about it." "That's all I can ask," Jackson said, standing. "Oh," Tiffany said, smiling faintly. "And Jackson?" "Yes?" "Respect has no price tag. Remember that next time you plan a party." He nodded. No jokes, no slick reply. Just respect. Then he left. 1 week later. The mentoring program had a new name, the Moore Circle, and a new motto on every flyer: "You don't need money to stand tall." Tiffany stood in a classroom full of girls aged 13 to 18, some shy, some loud, all curious. She told them her story. Not the fancy version, the real one, about working 2 jobs, about saving a dress for 20 years, about walking into a room built to embarrass her and choosing to own it. Some girls cried, some clapped, all of them listened. Later that night, Tiffany got a text from Haley. "Thank you for making me braver. P.S. I wore my natural curls to school today. No one said anything and I didn't care." Tiffany smiled wide, then typed back, "Good.
Be who you are. That's the bravest thing you'll ever do.
Life didn't suddenly become perfect. Bills still had to be paid, laundry still needed folding, but now, when Tiffany walked down the street, strangers smiled. When she entered the school where her mentoring program was held, students ran to hug her. And when she opened her closet, the box with the navy blue gown was no longer hiding. It was hanging on the back of her door, a reminder, not of what she lost, but of what she claimed. One morning, as Tiffany walked into the school, she noticed a young janitor mopping the floor. She was no older than 19. The girl looked up shyly.
"Ms. Moore," she said, "can I tell you something?"
"Of course."
"I saw your picture, the one from the party. You looked like a queen. I used to feel invisible, but now I feel like maybe I'm not."
Tiffany placed a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder.
"You never were invisible. People just didn't know how to see you."
The girl smiled with watery eyes, and Tiffany kept walking, head high, heart steady, heels clicking softly on the floor. Moral of the story: you don't need money, fame, or a big house to be important. All you need is to know who you are and never be afraid to show it. Respect is not something people give you, it's something you own. And once you do, no one can take it away. If you love Tiffany's story, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with someone who needs to believe in themselves again. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if someone tried to laugh at you, but you had the chance to walk in like a queen?